So can one simple upgrade to your PC double its performance? Let's find out. What's up everybody, it's PJ the Great. I hope you're having a super beautiful day. And today I want to talk about a simple upgrade that I did for a friend of mine. I like to call him El Jorge, but he goes by George. It's just a little joke, but he had an upgrade that he wanted to get done to his PC, so he reached out to me. Now, for those of you who don't know, he did purchase that PC that I did a while back. If you haven't seen that video, I'll link it right up here so you can check it out. It was that affordable Ryzen build that came with the Ryzen 5 2400G, helping you get into gaming on a budget. I sold that to him. It's been doing him justice, but he's made some tweaks on his own along the way. For example, he took that 8 gigs of RAM and he upgraded it to 16 gigabytes of RAM. And this time around, he decided to upgrade not only just the processor, but the motherboard as well. So he went with a Ryzen 5 3600. And he went with MSI X470 Gaming Plus Max motherboard. So he wanted me to do that upgrade for him, and I happily did it. So he was hoping for a little added performance. And by the way, I didn't mention that he did pick up a graphics card. He has a GTX 960, I think it is, or maybe 980. It's hard to get your hands on good graphics cards these days. We all know that. So I was pretty interested in this upgrade. I wanted to see what kind of performance boost that he would get. I had my personal opinions on it, but I'm the type of person that I only give my opinion unless someone asks me for it. So I didn't give my opinion. I might share my opinion at the end of this video about this upgrade, but I didn't film a lot of the upgrade process, but I will explain some of the things that we did do in order to get to where we were. Now, you'll see like in some of the B-roll that is playing here, and I'll show some screenshots as well, what the performance was like on his machine before we did this upgrade. Now, he was running that GTX 980 or 960, whatever it was, alongside the Ryzen 5 2400G. So I wanted to see what the performance was like before we threw in the Ryzen 5 3600 and the upgraded motherboard. So we see these numbers here, what he was getting, and then I was curious to see what kind of performance bump he would get moving up to this new processor as well as the new motherboard. And I installed it. Everything was fine and dandy. Windows worked on it just fine. I really didn't have to install Windows. Hang on for the rest of that story. But the process went just as well. And we also installed a new CPU cooler. Instead of going with the stock one, he had a cooler from up here. It was that round, like weird one. I'll show it on the screen here. And I heard that that thing is a pain in the ass to install, and they are not lying. I do not, for the life of me, ever want to touch one of those CPU coolers again. I don't want to have anything to do with it because it was a major PITA getting this thing installed. I eventually got it installed, but it was not fun, and I will not do it again. So the installation went fine. It went perfectly fine. So I wanted to run some numbers to see what kind of performance increase that we would get. And I was shocked to see that we were getting double the numbers that we were on the Ryzen 5 2400G on the A320 motherboard from Gigabyte with the Ryzen 5 3600 and the new X470 motherboard, the MSI. Double the performance just from switching the CPU and the motherboard. Now, before you start typing away down in the comments, I know the motherboard has nothing to do with it at all, especially if you're not taking advantage of overclocking. And he wanted an X470 motherboard just in case he wanted to tinker around with overclocking, but I didn't overclock the Ryzen 5 3600 because I saw that PBO was doing all the work and it was running at roughly 4.1, 4.2. at idle and even when I was running tests, so I didn't feel the need to overclock it. If he wants to overclock it on his own in the future, he can have at it, but I decided I wasn't going to overclock it. Same thing I did with my Ryzen 9 3900X. It's boosting itself all the way up to 4.4, and when I'm putting pressure on it, it's at like 4.3 gaming and video editing, so I didn't find any reason or need to even overclock it. So stayed in the same boat with his upgrade as well. So if he does decide to overclock, and I think he is, because I'm starting to learn that he's a tinkerer. He's a tinkerer, because I installed the up here cooler and it has RGB on it, RGB control. So I took the reset switch and I used that to do the RGB on the up here cooler, because his case also has RGB and it has a dedicated RGB button where he could change it there. And I figured, you know, no one uses the reset button. I don't use it. I don't know anybody who uses the reset button. It's like rare occasions where you might have to use this button. And he decided that he wanted his reset button, so he switched it himself. So it's all good. I mean, I like the fact that he's tinkering, and it's his PC. He can do whatever he wants. But he ran into an issue where he was stuck. Like, he wasn't getting any picture on the screen, and the computer was working fine for like, I want to say a couple of days. But then he ran into this issue where when he tried to activate Windows on the new motherboard, it wouldn't allow him to, or it did, and it caused a black screen. Did some troubleshooting, found out that it was stuck in safe mode, then found out that we had to do a fresh install of Windows 10. Sometimes you can get away with switching motherboards and not having to do a refresh or a fresh install of Windows 10. Sometimes you can get away with it. I tried to do it. I didn't get away with it. I did it on his. Thought I got away with it, but in the process of activating Windows, something went haywire, so we had to do a fresh install. But luckily, he has all of his major files on different drives rather than his main C drive. So the reinstall was actually no problem there. And I also, I went and changed his thermal paste on the GTX GPU. He asked me to change the thermal paste because, you know, he bought it used and it's a pretty old graphics card. So I disassembled it, looked at it. Yeah, the thermal paste was like hard and crusty. So we cleaned all that off, put on a fresh coat of thermal paste, and I even put in a light overclock of his GPU that I later decided to take off, just in case that has something to do with him getting the black screen when he activated Windows. I'm not sure if that has anything to do with it or not, but just in case, once I got it all fixed, I took the overclock off. That's my own fault, because I went against my own motto that I will not overclock a customer or friend's PC. I won't overclock their CPU and I won't overclock their GPU, because I don't want to deal with it if something goes wrong with the overclock. The last 3 PCs I sold, stock. I didn't overclock anything, with the exception of the last PC I sold. I did overclock the GPU, but it was a soft overclock using AMD software. So if anything goes wrong, the customer can just go in, turn it off, say la vie, whatever you want to say. So to make a long story short, can one little upgrade double your performance? In this case, it looks like it has. In my personal opinion, I think these numbers would be exactly the same if you would have stuck with his A320 motherboard instead of going with the X470, but he got a really good deal on the X470 motherboard, and I would have jumped on it too at that price. As a matter of fact, I did jump on it. I bought the exact same motherboard like months back just to have lying around the house just in case I need another motherboard. So it was a killer of a deal. And you think about it, the Ryzen 5 2400G, although it is 2nd gen, it is on that 14 nanometer, but I can't talk anymore, can I? It is on that 14 nanometer process. So it's just like a 1st gen chip. So he went from 1st gen to 3rd gen. So that is a huge jump in performance. And I hope that he notices it. I think he notices it. He says he's enjoying it. He says like even the screen and everything looks crispier, but he credited that to moving the RAM from the stock 2133 up to the printed 3200 that was on the box. This is the second friend to tell me that their graphics got better just because they ran their RAM at the right speed or they upgraded their RAM. I don't know how true that is. I mean, you should have a lot more RAM if you're running a lot of monitors. Like I'm running these 3 huge 32-inch monitors behind me. Maybe it's true. I don't know. So yes, at the end of the day, upgrading your CPU, you will see a huge gain in performance on paper. I would be curious to know if he's seeing it, you know, as he's actually using it and playing the games that he plays. He plays a lot of like first person shooters. Like he's really big into Apex Legends, and he's really gotten into 7 Days to Die with me and some other friends. So he's like in that realm of games. My personal opinion is that if you have the money to upgrade from what he had to the Ryzen 5 3600 and the X470, I say go for it, especially if you get a really good price at it. I'm assuming he got the Ryzen 5 3600 for anywhere between $150 and $200, and I know he got the motherboard for like $105, $110, so that's a killer upgrade. But like if you don't have the money, or if he didn't have the money, I think the setup that he was running was sufficient for the type of games that you run. I've said this before in the past, that really think about what you're doing with your PC before you start investing money and parts into it, unless you're trying to future-proof yourself. That's another video that I did that I'll link up here if you're interested in checking it out, on how I feel about future-proofing. Anyway, I'm not going to get into it in this video. Hey, if you like this video, do me a favor and give it a big old thumbs up. If you hated it, you can give it a thumbs down. But no matter what you do, don't forget to click that subscribe button and click the bell right next to it, so you will be notified every time I upload new videos. And I swear it won't be 2 months again. A lot of stuff has been going on. A lot of stuff. My world has been turned upside down since losing my job. Still trying to get things back on track. I've been doing a little side hustling. I was trying to get back into PC building to make some money there, and I've been doing a lot of gig work like DoorDash, Uber Eats, and I just signed up for Grubhub and Instacart just to have money rolling in until I find like another steady job, because YouTube ain't paying me enough to live off of. I don't have enough views to be trying to live off of YouTube. So that's where your boy's at right now. But thank you for tuning in. And until I see you in the next video, this is PJ the Great saying Audi 5000 G. This is what happens when you've been away from making videos for a long time. You forget how to talk, and I'll be surprised if I remember how to edit this video. We'll see.